No, not yet. No. Hey, good
Oh,
morning.
okay.
Good morning, and welcome to another edition of the Practice Gratitude Success Show. And thank you, everybody who's here today. Thank you, Jackson, Len Mooney, Nicole. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for being here. Everybody who's popping in right now, thank you so much for being here. We have a returning guest, somebody who was here before, but he disappeared, and that's the reason why he's called the Disappearing Monk. And he's the author, I believe, 4 books: What God Said to the Rose, The Next Step in Evolution, The Faithful Fool, and The Way of the Monk. There might be more. There might be more coming. But anyways, our co-host today is somebody that is going to bring us a great amount of value today, Vincent Cole. Vincent, thank you so much for appearing again once again today. Thank you, and good morning to you.
I took a break this time. Good morning. Yes, due to technical difficulties, the first time I would pop in and out, but this time I think I'm here to stay at least for the next 30 minutes.
Wonderful. Well, we were talking about, we were going to bring up the subject of self-love today. Now we're asking if anybody on the chat here would like to put up a question. Do you want to hear anything that Vincent would like to maybe answer for them? But my idea was to talk about self-love. So it depends on where you want to go with that. It's up to you, Vincent.
Well, I think it's a very good subject. I think it's a very complex subject. I'd like to start off with a story, if I may. There was this young man who really wanted a holy life. He felt that calling within him, but he needed some help, some guidance. And he had heard of this very holy man that lived out in the forest. So after many days traveling, he finally finds this holy man living in this little hut, very simple. And he approaches them and saying, I want to be like you. I want to be holy too. I want to get closer to God. And the old holy man just nods his head and says, okay, but first I want you to travel about a mile to the west. There's a small town, and behind that town is a graveyard. Go into the graveyard, and I want you to praise all the people that are in that graveyard. Well, the young man thinks this is a little weird, but he goes ahead and he does it, and he travels. He's standing in the middle of the graveyard, and he's saying how wonderful you people are. You must be truly blessed, for now you are in heaven, and now you're with the Lord. And you must have led such wonderful, virtuous lives. And it goes on complimenting them and how fortunate they are, and on and on and on. And then after about an hour of this, he gets tired. He returns to the holy man and goes, well, I did what you asked. And the holy man just nods and says, very good, very good. Now I want you to go back and curse them. The young man's a little baffled by this, and he's thinking, this old man must be crazy. But he's thinking, all right, maybe it's holy obedience. Maybe he's testing me. I'll go back and I'll do that. Goes back into the graveyard, and he's saying how awful those people must be, how they must be in hell. They've led such terrible lives, how cursed everything about them, just calling them vile names, saying how they were nothing but food for worms, that they got what they deserved. And he gets exhausted. He goes back to the holy man, and he says, all right, I did what you said. The holy man nods. He says, okay, so you did go there and you complimented them. He said, yes, I praised them. I said, well, how wonderful they were, how fortunate they were. It's all right. And then cursed them. He said, yes, I told them how terrible they must be and such sinful people, and they must be burning in hell. And the holy man looks at him and says, well, how did they react? And the young man looked at him and said, well, they didn't react at all. The old man nods and says, good, if you want to be holy, be like them. So neither compliments nor curses should matter to you. So what I offer as an alternative to self-love, how about being neutral about yourself? Because when it's love and hate are just different sides of the same coin. And you can bounce between those two sides. I believe everyone does have self-love. But things like judgment, comparing themselves to other people. These are things that get in the way of feeling it. Experiences we had in the past get in the way of feeling it. When you're neutral about yourself, you see that the experiences you've had in your life were just that, just experiences. It was nothing personal. It wasn't directly against you or who you were. It was something you experienced. Someone once pointed out that, say you were raised by terrible parents, really awful, did terrible things to you. Well, it wasn't you, it was who they were. And no matter who was born to them, they would have done the same thing. So you can't take it personally. So it's developing a kind of neutrality about yourself and almost a detached, objective approach to who you are. It's almost losing the self and not so focused on the self.
Kind of letting go of your ego, basically.
Letting go of the ego, yeah, definitely. For those of you who believe in past lives, it's like, well, why is this life any more important than all the other ones you had? It's just one aspect of who you are. It shouldn't be taken too seriously.
Can we really let go of the ego? You hear about that all the people always say we need to do that. I had another guest one time, and she said, "No, just make friends with your ego." So I mean, it's a question that's out there all the time. Is it possible for us just to let go? And I mean, you hear like Wayne Dyer's book, "Let Go and Let God." Is it something that we can do?
It takes work. We're living in a very ego-oriented world. But the best thing to do is understand the ego. Now, not to push my book called The Next Step in Evolution, a personal guide, but it does explain the purpose of the ego, that it was to ensure that the continuation of the species known as humanity, that it had to focus on physical survival in order to continue. Now, what the ego is concerned about is food, shelter, procreation, the well-being of the physical self, and basically survival.
Right.
Now, these are good aspects. If you're going to be in a physical body, you should maintain some of this. But what the book explains is that this aspect of human consciousness has gotten over-exercised. Considering that we're now the dominant species of the planet, it's really not that necessary to focus so entirely on our physical survival, especially since it's a losing battle anyway. We're not going to survive in this physical form.
No, we're not, are we?
No, and that's what a lot of inner conflict is between the spiritual knowledge of knowing that this life is temporary and this form is temporary, in conflict with the ego that fights to stay alive, fights to survive. And by understanding it, we could diminish its influence on us.
How does one get to understand it without being a monk?
I think it's by observing it, by observing your fears. What are you afraid of? And usually it's afraid of, the fear is based on survival. It's the ego, like, I'm afraid something's going to happen to me. I'm afraid I'm going to be destroyed. I'm afraid I won't have enough. I'm afraid no one likes me. And in a kind of tribal society, that no one likes you could be quite dangerous. It's stepping away from those fears, seeing where they come from, and seeing if they're justified, because most fears are more imaginary than they are real. We kind of speculate on what could happen.
Right.
People say, well, is fear necessary? And I say, no, there's an alternative. You could use intuition to alert you to potential danger. This doesn't feel right. Okay.
Right.
So you can diminish the ego's influence on your conscious thinking by recognizing where it comes from and what you're concerned about. Also, by balancing out with spiritual practices of meditation, prayer, acts of devotion, that begins to lift you to a higher vibration, whereas the ego's vibration won't have as much influence. Am I making sense?
No, yeah, absolutely. As you're saying it, I'm just thinking. I'm looking at a scale like your lower vibrations, then your higher vibrations. Abraham Hicks talks about that. Like your high vibrations are like things like happiness, love, joy. Your lower ones would be things like anger, resentment, jealousy, and you don't want to live in those spaces. That's where a lot of people live in real life, because you're angry about something, you're upset about something, so you're living in those low vibrations where love and joy and happiness, gratitude are high. Does that make does
And
that, does
you're
that fit?
transforming those very basic primitive feelings to to a higher level. And that's what all spiritual practice really are about, is the transformation of your own personal energy. So not just an intellectual understanding of something, it has to be incorporated into your whole being,
And that's where like meditation
both
comes in, huh?
emotionally and physically.
And devotion, doing things, doing acts, doing
I'm
good things.
sorry. Now you're freezing up. Am I okay?
Yeah, you're okay.
Oh, all right. Um, but I'll go on talking. I also try to get across to people spiritual path. Be forewarned that it's not easy. That you're going to face challenges, you're going to face disappointments, you're going to find you're struggling alone and so separate from the rest of society. You're not going to share as much interest in what the rest of society shares. And at times you're going to feel like you're totally going even against your own self. And you are. You're going against the way you were brought up. You're going against how society thinks. And you're challenging yourself. So it's not going to be easy. And I think if you approach it with the attitude that there are going to be challenges, then you also find the strength to meet those challenges.
Does that
Because often spirituality is presented as, well, if you do this, this, and this, everything's going to be wonderful. It doesn't work that way.
right?
Yeah.
It's not like that. And in this world, it's all sorts of things, aren't we?
I try to point out that spirituality itself is quite easy. Being spiritual in this world, now that's the real challenge. And I only bring that up because I've seen so many people get discouraged and disappointed and give up or totally dismiss spirituality because it wasn't working the way they expected it to work, that they thought everything would be wonderful.
And then they think that they did something.
Yeah, they think, well, either there's something totally wrong with the whole spiritual path, or they themselves has failed in some way. Whereas, no, you're facing a challenge. You're not really promised any results except perhaps a greater knowledge. Whether you succeed or fail in your mind, nevertheless, you've gained knowledge. You've gained a greater wisdom.
Experience.
And again, if you're back being, to return to being neutral about yourself, you start experiencing that it's not a reflection of you. It's simply it's part of the journey. It's part of your own personal journey. But it's not a reflection of who you truly are. That you've come onto this planet in a certain form, within certain circumstances, to experience certain things that best benefit your soul. That's why I also warn people, spirituality is not one size fits all. What might work for one person may not work for you because your soul's journey is different than that other person's. It's why you were talking the other day, some affirmations do work for some people, but not for all people, because we all have individual paths based on what's best for our soul.
Exactly. Like anything else. Different people.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to hog the show. If anybody have questions,
They didn't come for me. They came for you today.
oh, they came for you. You're wonderful. So, what else?
Well, the whole thing, getting back into the neutral thing, really intrigues me, Vincent, about how can we get to that place of neutrality about ourselves. I mean, because I never heard that before. I never heard that before, so it's like my mind spinning. How do we meditate?
There's a simple. You could try this one simple practice. It sounds like I'm pushing my book, but I really don't push my book. Otherwise, I wouldn't be telling you for free. Of simply looking in the mirror, remembering all the different faces you've had just in this lifetime, as a baby, as a toddler, as a teenager, as a young adult, all the different physical aspects, and then look at the mirror and realize even what you're looking at is not really you. It's by disassociating with your physical identity, identifying with what you look like physically, thinking that this body, these eyes, this nose, this mouth, this hair is you. It's not. It's a form you've taken at this point. So once you begin really just focusing on dismissing and detaching from identifying with what you look like, you begin to get more in tune with your soul. And the soul doesn't care about compliments or curses. The soul just is. And you start feeling that energy within you. And I think when you start feeling the soul, you also feel that connection to the divine. And that's where the love comes from.
You're not saying, well, I mean, you're not saying like don't take care of your body. You're not saying that.
No, I'm not saying that. That's why I'm saying the ego does have its place as far as taking care of the physical form. Same way you take care of your car. Put gas in it when it needs gas. And have the same attitude toward yourself. It's like, okay, I need to eat, but it doesn't have to be a great, wonderful meal of the century. It's like, I need to eat, so I better eat something. I need to drink water. These things are necessary. It's when it rules you,
Right.
when it becomes the predominant factor in your life, then it's just, as I explained, it's like you go to a gym, but you're only exercising one part of your body. That part is going to become very strong. And the other part's going to just kind of hang there and be weak and kind of get useless. And you'll find you're doing everything, say, just with your right arm, that you tend to lean on your right leg, where the left one just gets dragged along. Spiritual practices is exercising the other part, is developing, say, the left side of the body, getting balance. You don't go from one extreme to another.
Right.
Now, we do have instances, let's say, like St. Francis of Assisi, who I thought was quite the lunatic until I started researching him and learning more about him. I thought he was far too extreme.
Really?
But what he did was to conquer the cravings of his physical self. And it was a struggle for him. It was his challenge of his soul during that lifetime. So I don't judge him as harshly as I used to, thinking he was totally nuts. I believed in a balance. I figure this world could be painful enough. Why look for more pain?
Right.
But he did it in order to discipline himself. And some degree of discipline is necessary so that you're not being ruled by basic ego desires. Does that make sense?
Do you think like something like meditation would also be disciplined then, wouldn't it?
I'm sorry, that broke up a bit. What did you say?
Would meditation also be considered a discipline?
Yes, it's a very important discipline. My theory, and I'm only going to present it as a theory, because if I'm not sure about something, I'm going to preface it by, this is my take on it, my theory. By lowering the lights, closing your eyes, maybe playing soft music, being still, being quiet, what you're doing is closing off the senses, the physical senses. And what that does is start to activate other parts of the brain, which helps to increase things like intuition, creativity, communication with things beyond the 3-dimension. It starts to break down that veil where we see a separation between the physical and the spiritual. Now, this does more than 30 years ago. I had no idea what meditation was. I was told just sit still for 15 minutes, which was the longest 15 minutes I ever experienced. I kept looking at the clock going, is it up yet? Do I still have to sit here? But I kept at it, and within a week, I found that 15 minutes became 20 minutes without me noticing. Then a half hour. Excuse me. And I started having experiences. And now I can meditate for hours with no sense of boredom. And it did open up to it does open up a whole new aspect about yourself, about reality, and it's good for you physically to just sit still.
Right.
When I have meditation groups, it's like guardian spirits, they're guardian angels, spirit guides, would thank me just because I was able to get those people to just sit still for an hour. It's very difficult to get people to just sit still.
It is. It sounds like it's something very easy, but it's very difficult. Our minds are always running things.
Because we think we're wasting time.
Right. But it's like a discipline, just like if you exercise. You have to take the time to do it, huh?
Exactly. And no one's going to give you that time.
Right.
Don't wait for the opportunity. I found that as soon as I insisted upon it, everything else would fall into place around it.
I like that.
Yeah. So you have to insist upon it. You have to just set your mind and just let it be known to family members, to the universe. Like, all right, at this time, and getting a specific time, say, okay, it's from 7 to 7:30, I'm just going to sit with my eyes closed. And nothing is to disturb me. There will be attempts.
There will be a lot of attempts.
At first. But when you insist upon it, you'll find that everything will fall into place as it should be, and you're given that half hour.
Interesting. Now, of course, people with children or animals, something you might have to adjust your time or something like that as well. If you have little children, there's going to be a lot of demands on people. If you're an adult, and you can find your place, you can find a place. But if you're a parent and you got a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, they're running in, that might not be possible. That to wait till they go to bed or something like that.
Oh, You'll find a way. Trust me. You know, you wait till the child is asleep.
Right.
You know, you could find ways, and yeah, if family demands can be pressing,
So can animals.
but you can insist upon it. You could schedule it the way you schedule, and you schedule dinner, or you schedule getting up to go to school, or getting up to go to work. You schedule it, and mm, make sure nothing gets in the way. That's all.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
It will fall into place.
It's just take that time, make it happen. We can always give an excuse for anything that we want. We can give an
Oh
excuse
yeah.
for why we don't exercise, whatever. We can say, well, I can't because. But what you're saying, it's a discipline. You must take that time if you want to raise your vibration, raise your energy.
Yeah.
So
Does anybody have questions?
yeah,
I
I'm
see
looking
some
over.
wonderful comments. Thank you for the comments. And again, I like to offer different perspectives to just try to expand and not get caught in singular mindsets.
Well, Tammy,
I don't, I'm sorry, I was going to just add, I don't believe in absolutes. I think this wonderful universe, this divine creation is so complex, so many possibilities that it's impossible to give an absolute about anything, really.
right.
So there are different methods, different paths. None of them are absolute, but they are things worth investigating. It could all be true. That's the beauty of it. It's like these are total opposites, but they're both true.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I think that I don't know if that's a question, but Tammy's saying that's why different people have different problems. We may not have needs to learn that. I don't. Can you see what you
I
wrote over?
know what we have to be careful of it, and the mentality is, give me that magic formula to live my life. There is no magic formula to live your life. Life is not a formula. Life is not something you get out of a book, otherwise you'd just be handed a book. Life is to be experienced, and it's life that is the teacher. Life is the teacher. And yes, look at the diversity upon this planet, not just the natural diversity, but the diversity of people. And yes, they have different paths. What's good for my soul may not be good for your soul. What you need to learn on this journey is different than what I'm trying to learn. I remember in one meditation session, a young woman said, well, should we be more like you? And I was horrified. It's like, no, no, no. I have enough trouble being me. You should be more like you.
Right.
And that's what the real spiritual is, helping each individual on their own path, not getting them onto my path
Right.
because it's mine, but helping them on their path with encouragement, with guidance, but would best benefit them. Not try exactly, and trying to look at the individual and what they're going through, and having that compassion for what that individual is going through, and not using some kind of false rule or standards. Even in spirituality, we tend to set up standards that people will find are a burden. I'm not compassionate enough. I'm not loving enough. I'm not self-loving. Just be who you are and discover who you are without the judgments, without the burdens. The hardest part is just being honest with yourself. Most people cannot face being honest with themselves. There's times it's like, oh, I really screwed up. It's like, oh, that was wrong. It's like, oh, I'll never do that again. It's admitting it's being honest. It's like, ooh, that wasn't very wise. I better change that.
Right.
I better learn from it. So it's just being honest with yourself without the judgments.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Again,
You know?
going back to what you said at the beginning, be neutral about yourself. So you're not judging.
So that you can look at yourself honestly.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And having the discernment of this works, this doesn't work. This is best for my soul. This is not best for my soul. This helps me on my journey, but this is holding me back. These are not judgments, but discernment of really assessing the experience, seeing it for what it is, and whether it's worthwhile to continue or to let go of it.
And we could use the same thing with a career or even a relationship as well, couldn't we?
Exactly. In any aspect of life. But I think the thing I want to say the most here is don't be burdened by your spiritual journey. It's challenging enough as it is without adding the pressure of should be, have to be, excuse me, must be, I'm not good enough. I'm not meeting those standards. They're goals, they're practices, something that, well, once you realize that you never get to a certain point, this is a path that has no end.
Right.
You never get to a point where you sit back and like, I got it.
I'm there. Hey, I'm
there. Well, as soon as you reach that point, why stay on Earth?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like talking to some people who say, "Oh, yeah, I read all this spiritual stuff. I'm good." Or I went to the gym 4 years ago. I'm good. I don't need to exercise anymore. You know, they get that. They say, I've done all that. And there's
it's a wonderful journey, and there are periods of rest. There are seasons of the soul, which is what God said to the rose is all about, the natural progression of the soul on earth. And there's times where you put in a lot of effort. It's time to plant seeds and water them and protect them as they grow. There's time to reap the rewards of it, and that's the harvest. And there's winter when nothing happens. And you feel like, oh, what's wrong? Nothing's happening. Well, you're resting. You're taking in everything you've learned and incorporating it. It's not constantly working in the fields.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, so also encouraging people, take the time to rest, know when to rest. When nothing's happening, it's not happening for a reason. It's not like you've been abandoned. It's not like you're not doing your work. It's like, all right, incorporate what you've already learned before rushing on to the next thing. So it's not an easy path, but don't make it more difficult than it is.
I love that. I love that, Vincent. I think I can't wait to replay back and extract these quotes, that things that you said, little pearls of wisdom here, which I will put inside today's blog when I send out a little bit later on today. But we are out of time right now. Would you come back next month?
If I'm still around. I don't even plan tomorrow. Well, we'll have that as a goal and see if that's where our path takes us.
Towards the end of the month, I'll leave that thing. If you're not there, then we'll just talk about you.
Exactly. Why don't we also, if people who come in periodically, if they have a topic they want to talk about, maybe they could send some suggestions to you.
Yeah.
If there's something that's going on in their lives they want to discuss, without without, we'll do it in confidence. We won't point it out, but we could use it as a subject matter.
Okay.
How's that work?
Yeah, that's wonderful. What's the best way for people, if they want to reach out and contact you, connect with you, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
We'll go on Facebook, Vincent Cole. You'll recognize the picture. Monksbook.com. There's also contact information there. But remember, it's the message, not the messenger, that's important.
Right.
All right.
I'm just writing that in at monksbook.com. That's your website. That's where you have all your books are right there. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Vincent, so much for coming here today. I'm glad we were able to have this whole entire show without any disruptions. There's a lot of things that you said that are going to give me a lot of food for thought that I will be thinking about today myself. So, what I think one big thing I got out of it was like you mentioned, the seasons of life. Every day is almost like a mini season, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
A day is like a whole year of seasons.
wonderful. Well, thank you again, Vincent. So we have to run right now. People they have to go rest or work or whatever they have to do. But thank you so much, Vincent. So
All right. Thank you. Peace, everybody.
tomorrow, make sure tomorrow you stop in. Tomorrow we have the passionate princess of prayer comes in tomorrow. Priscilla McMillan. She comes in on every Thursday. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. She's an amazing, inspirational lady. So God bless everybody, and have yourself a great day filled with positive momentum. And who are you grateful for today? We'll talk to you later. Bye bye.